Football, you can get hurt, you can shed blood, but they don't call Hep C a football transmitted disease.
Or you could be walking down the beach, barefoot, step on a piece of glass that someone who has a disease handled, and if there's dry blood on it, you could get Hep C.
The consultant told me that he was in touch with the people who were running the clinical trial, and that if I had the liver biopsy and everything worked out right, then there was a chance I might be able to go on the trial. And that would be very good for me because this new combination of drugs, interferon and ribavirin, had a 60% success rate in curing the illness.
Interferon alpha is a bioengineered version of natural interferon, an element in the body's immune system which flags up hostile microbes. Ribavirin is an antiviral agent.
One of the requirements for the trial was that I needed to have a liver biopsy to assess my liver damage. Hep C damages the liver. The consultant told me that there was no pain and it was a perfectly safe procedure. I was put on the table and given a local anaesthetic, and this junior doctor came in and made me sign a form. The next thing I noticed was that he was holding what looked like a horse needle. He said, "Okay, lie still." He took out a magic marker pen and made a cross on my skin, just below the ribs. And he said to the nurse to hold me down. She held me down, and I looked under her arms to see what the doctor was doing. He had the biopsy needle like this, way up high, and then he came down, whack, onto the marker pen mark. The pain was absolutely unbelievable. I mean, I've never experienced anything like it. You know that phrase, jumping out, you jump out of your skin, that's what I did. For a brief second, I saw my body below me. I heard this weird sound. And then I was sucked back into my body, and the sound was me screaming. It was the most intense pain. I was, completely dazed by it, and I remember the doctor saying, "Oh, I've missed. I'm going to have to do it again." Whacked it back in, and then yanked the needle out, and then he said, "Good, I've got it this time." And then he left. I just said to the nurse, "Please, can I please have some painkillers?" He said the only thing that she was allowed to give me was paracetamol, which had no effect at all. I was left there on the biopsy table for about 6 hours in pain. The nurse came back and she said, "You have to leave now." So I got up and I just fell straight down again. I couldn't walk. She helped me down the corridor and into the lift, and we went down, and she put me in the cafeteria, and I was in the cafeteria for 4 or 5 hours, keeping as still as possible to minimise the pain. And then eventually I was strong enough to start to leave, and I left the hospital. The tube station was right next to the hospital, and I made my way there. Lucky for me, my parents lived only one stop away from the hospital. I spent the next 3 days at my parents' house. I was paralysed, I couldn't move. And after that I was able to go home, where I went to bed, and I was there for 3 weeks in bed, and then gradually I was able to get up and walk around and function again.
Some doctors refer to the virus as being dormant.
The virus is never dormant. However,
During the first year of infection,
usually called the acute phase,
the disease can be easily cured with a 6-month course of treatment. Unfortunately, during the acute phase, there are no symptoms. People don't know they've been infected, so they don't go to the doctor.
I was accepted for the trial. I had to go in every week and give blood, and I was injected with interferon and given ribavirin tablets.
Those most at risk of getting infected with hepatitis C are surgeons, dentists, paramedics, nurses and doctors, because they are most likely to come in contact with infected blood. Unfortunately, any healthcare practitioner that tests positive for hepatitis C is automatically fired. Because of this, Healthcare practitioners avoid getting tested and the disease spreads.
I've been told by the consultant that the only side effects of interferon ribavirin were flu-like symptoms. But after I'd been doing it for about a month, my hair fell out. That was the first thing. Then my eyesight started to deteriorate, my hearing also, and I started to get very, very weak. And over a period of about 2.5 months, I lost all my muscles. My muscles wasted away. It was like my body was eating itself. I became so weak that I couldn't even pick up a telephone. I also started to develop depression. Depression it's not unhappiness. It's nothing like unhappiness. It's more like being trapped in a nightmare. The only way you can release yourself is really by killing yourself. That's what I tried to do at that point. I crawled into the road in order to kill myself. I was hoping a car or a lorry or whatever would do it. But both times people pulled me back in. The problem was that I was really out of my mind at that time, and what was odd was that I wasn't being monitored by anybody at the hospital. After I quit the clinical trial, it took almost 2 years to get the hospital to release my medical notes, which, when they arrived, were inaccurate and incomplete. Virtually none of my side effects had been recorded. My participation in the trial over, I was, in effect, let go by the NHS. There is no palliative care for people in Britain with hepatitis C.
This aggressive-looking building is Richmond House, the headquarters of the government's Department of Health.
For the past 9 years, I've been living as frugally as possible on my savings and using what little energy I have to research the disease and write letters, mostly to the Department of Health. I didn't always get replies to my letters, but when I did, they were invariably headed "in confidence." This is a legal gimmick which permits the government to prosecute me if I publish what they've written. Anyway, you can't prosecute me for what I've written to them, so here are a few examples of my letters. Andrew Whitcomb, Blood and Healthcare Associated Infections Unit, Department of Health, Skipton House, London SC1, 6LH, October the 17th, 2001. Dear Mr. Whitcomb, please forgive another letter. I've just come back from posting my first letter, but find I'm still in a state of shock at the apparent indifference expressed in your letter regarding government measures for dealing with hepatitis C. As you know, my letters to the Department of Health have been about the urgent necessity for blood testing. Yet you don't even refer to this in your letter. Let me repeat why everyone needs to be tested for hepatitis C. Hepatitis C is spreading fast. At the current rate, over 20% of the world's population will be infected by the year 2040, according to the Hepatitis Global Conference. We need government funding for blood testing, education in disease prevention, assistance for those who have the disease, and funding to research a cure. There has never been, and still is, no research being done on the hepatitis C virus in the UK. This is a scandal. If action is not taken now, the future looks bleak for our children. Our children will have a 1 in 5 chance of getting hepatitis C. This is a much worse epidemic than HIV. Every local authority needs to organise through its hospitals and clinics the blood testing of every person in their district. Once the blood test programme is complete, those who are HCV positive, probably about 800,000 people in Britain, can begin treatment. The earlier you detect the virus, the easier it is to clear. The government's first duty must be to protect its citizens.
People most at risk of having or getting hepatitis C are recipients of blood transfusions or blood products before 1992,